You know how every time humanity accomplished something impressive before the invention of Wi-Fi, there's always someone in the comments section who says it? Three little words. It was aliens. The Great Pyramids, aliens. Stonehenge, aliens with a very specific rock collection. But what if the real answers are actually more creative and clever? Today, we're looking at some ancient mysteries unlocked, and it wasn't aliens this time. Let's get right into it. Number 6 is the Desert Doodles. Deep in the arid plains of southern Peru are hundreds of gigantic drawings etched into the desert floor. There are massive, stylized figures of spiders, monkeys, and hummingbirds, alongside impossibly long, straight lines and geometric shapes that stretch for miles. These are the Nazca lines, and they are so enormous that you can only really grasp their full scale from high up in the sky. So, naturally, the most popular theory for decades was that they were made for someone in the sky. The story goes that these were either ancient alien landing strips or a giant welcome mat for extraterrestrial visitors. After all, why would a pre-modern culture spend so much time and effort creating art that they themselves couldn't fully see from the ground? It seems logical until you learn two things. First, you can see the lines from the surrounding hills and low mountains, which were sacred places for the Nazca people. Second, the way they were made was brilliantly simple. The desert is covered by a layer of dark, rust-colored rock. To create a line, they just had to remove the top layer of dark pebbles to reveal the lighter-colored earth underneath. It's like drawing on the world's largest scratch art pad. Archaeologists now believe the lines were not runways, but ceremonial pathways. People would walk along them in long, single-file processions as part of religious rituals, likely related to praying for water and fertility, the two most important things when you live in a desert. The giant animal figures probably represented deities or constellations. They weren't a sign for aliens looking down, they were a sacred space for humans looking up. Sorry, ancient astronaut theorists. These weren't landing strips. They were pilgrimage routes. Number 5 is the Easter Island Enigma. Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, is one of the most isolated places on Earth, a tiny speck of land in the vast Pacific Ocean. And it's famous for its silent, brooding inhabitants, the Moai. Nearly 1,000 of these colossal stone statues are scattered around the island. Some are over 30 feet tall and weigh more than 80 tons. The mystery that has baffled people for centuries isn't who carved them, but how on earth did a small, prehistoric society with no wheels, no cranes, and few large trees move these giants for miles across hilly terrain? For many, the only logical answer was, you guessed it, aliens. Maybe they used levitation beams or anti-gravity sleds to just float the statues into place. How else could it be done? Well, the answer was hidden in the islanders' own oral traditions all along, which always maintained that the statues walked from the quarry to their platforms. For years, outsiders assumed this was just a poetic metaphor. But what if they meant it literally? In 2011, a team of archaeologists and engineers decided to test it. They created a 5-ton replica of a moai and studied its shape. They noticed the statues were engineered with a forward tilt and a D-shaped base, making them unstable but perfect for rocking. With just 3 strong ropes and a team of 18 people rhythmically pulling back and forth, they made the statue walk. It shimmied and waddled down a road, just like moving a giant refrigerator. The Rapa Nui people weren't just incredible artists, they were master engineers who understood physics better than we gave them credit for. They didn't need alien technology. They just needed rope, teamwork, and a great sense of rhythm. Number 4 is the ancient Greek computer. In 1901, divers exploring an ancient shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera found a corroded, shoebox-sized lump of bronze. It looked like a rock and was basically ignored for decades. Then, as technology improved, scientists started scanning it with X-rays and CT scanners. What they found inside was so complex, so advanced, it felt like it shouldn't exist. It was a system of at least 30 intricate, interlocking gears, like the guts of a mechanical clock made 1,000 years before clocks were invented. This device, now known as the Antikythera mechanism, was so far beyond any known technology from its era, around the 2nd century BC, that it was immediately labeled an out-of-place artifact. How could an ancient society create something with such precision? The gears were cut with a level of sophistication that Europe wouldn't see again until the great cathedral clocks of the 14th century. The obvious, easy answer from the fringes of the internet was that it had to be a piece of alien technology that was salvaged, studied, and poorly copied. After decades of intense research, we finally know the truth. It wasn't alien technology, it was the pinnacle of human ingenuity. The Antikythera mechanism was a brilliant astronomical computer. By turning a small hand crank, you could track the position of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets visible to the naked eye. It could predict eclipses, map the lunar calendar, and even had a dial that showed the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. It was, essentially, the world's first laptop, powered by gears and genius. It's a humbling reminder that humanity didn't just discover technology once. Knowledge can be lost, and sometimes we have to rediscover how smart our ancestors really were. Number 3 is the self-healing cement. Go look at a concrete sidewalk from the 1980s. It's probably a cracked, crumbling mess. Now, look at the Pantheon in Rome. It has the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, and it's been standing for nearly 2,000 years. It has survived wars, weather, and multiple earthquakes. How is it that modern buildings start to decay after a few decades, while Roman structures are practically immortal? Did they get the recipe from a visiting extraterrestrial construction foreman? For centuries, the recipe and durability of Roman concrete was a genuine mystery. We knew they used a different mix, one that often included volcanic ash, but that wasn't the whole story. The real secret, which scientists only fully cracked in 2023, was hidden in tiny white chunks that are scattered throughout the concrete. For years, historians thought these little bits, called limeclasts, were just evidence of sloppy mixing. It turns out they are the key to the whole thing. They are the secret ingredient in a self-healing system. Here's how it works. When a tiny crack forms in the concrete and water seeps in, that water reacts with the limeclasts. This chemical reaction creates new calcite crystals that grow and fill the crack, sealing it up from the inside before it has a chance to spread. Water, the enemy of modern concrete, is actually the trigger for the healing process in Roman concrete. It's not just a static building material, it's a dynamic chemical system designed to repair itself. So no, the Romans didn't have alien help. They just had a recipe so smart, it took us 2 millennia and scanning electron microscopes to finally understand it. Number 2 is the ultimate megastructure. You can't make a video about ancient mysteries without talking about the final boss of architecture, the Great Pyramid of Giza. We're talking about a single structure made of an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, some weighing as much as a space shuttle. It was the tallest man-made structure in the world for nearly 4,000 years, and it's aligned to true north with a degree of accuracy that is baffling even today. How did a Bronze Age civilization with no iron tools, no cranes, and no modern machinery pull this off? For many, the answer is simple: they didn't. Aliens did. The project was just too big, too precise, too perfect. The ancient astronaut theory suggests that extraterrestrials must have provided the levitation technology, laser cutters, and architectural plans to get the job done. It's a compelling idea, mostly because it saves us from having to think too hard about it. But the real explanation is far more impressive. While we don't know every detail, archaeologists have a very good idea of how it was done. The massive stones were quarried locally and transported on giant wooden sleds. The secret weapon wasn't anti-gravity, it was water. By pouring a small amount of water on the sand in front of the sled, the ancient Egyptians could dramatically reduce friction, allowing a surprisingly small crew to pull an enormous block. For lifting them, they didn't use one giant, inefficient ramp. The current leading theory suggests a system of ramps, including a massive external one for the lower levels and a clever internal, corkscrewing ramp for the top sections. This wasn't the work of a few aliens. It was the work of tens of thousands of skilled, well-fed Egyptian laborers who lived in a purpose-built city nearby. We've found their bakeries and breweries. This wasn't slave labor. It was a national project on the scale of a moon mission. It was built not by aliens from another planet, but by sheer human ingenuity, organization, and a whole lot of bread and beer. And at number 1, we have the 2,000-year-old power cell. Back in the 1930s, a peculiar set of artifacts were discovered near Baghdad, Iraq. They consisted of small clay jars, and inside each was a copper cylinder. Inside the cylinder was an iron rod, held in place at the top by an asphalt plug. The whole assembly, dating back about 2,000 years, looked uncannily like a primitive galvanic cell. In other words, a battery. A battery, in ancient Mesopotamia, the discovery immediately ignited a firestorm of speculation. What could they have possibly used electricity for? Did priests use it to create magic, tingling sensations to awe their followers? Did they have a form of primitive electroplating? Or, as some suggested, was this proof of a lost, high technology, perhaps a power source reverse-engineered from a crashed UFO? Replicas of the Baghdad battery have proven that it can indeed produce a small electrical current, about half a volt. Not enough to power a light bulb, but maybe enough for something. The electroplating theory is plausible. But there's another, much more mundane theory that is far more likely. It turns out, these objects bear a striking resemblance to containers from a neighboring ancient city that had a known purpose: protecting sacred scrolls. In this scenario, a papyrus or parchment scroll would be wrapped around the iron rod, and the copper cylinder would act as a protective case. The asphalt plug sealed the whole thing up to protect the precious document from the elements. The fact that the materials used, iron, copper, and a slightly acidic residue from something like wine or vinegar, could produce an electric charge is likely just a complete and utter coincidence. So, the most famous example of ancient high-tech was probably just a really fancy, well-made scroll protector. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.